Hey guys, welcome to Cozy Talks Live. I am considerably late this evening. I've been working on a couple of really big projects that I'll be very excited to share with you this evening. My brain right now feels like it's completely fried because I've been doing nothing but reading research after research after research all day long, working on some of these projects. But for those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for joining in. Please be sure to put replay into the comments section because I do like to look back to see who's watching the show. And if you have any questions for those of you watching the replay, feel free to put that in. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to jump on board. Hey there, Harsh. And we're going to go ahead and get going on Instagram. That popped up nice and quick this evening, which is nice. All right, we got Instagram, we got Facebook, we got YouTube. So we are good to go. All right, I see a couple of y'all popping on board. I've got my very badly needed Nespresso decaf, my little label, my little decal's falling off right there, but that's okay. We said Harsh's time. I can't even speak this evening, guys. Harsh is chiming in from Richmond, Virginia, and down and under the weather. I'm sorry to hear that, Harsh. We got Rob on board, get with his Gatorade Zero tonight. Thanks for joining, Rob. All right, I'm going to take a sip and we're going to get this party started because we got a lot of questions that came in this week. And you know, I love it when I have a week with a lot of questions. Oh, yeah, that's the good stuff. All right, let's see what's going on with Instagram. I'm going to be popping back and forth between the two. We got Two Spirit Johnny joining in. Thanks for joining in. For my Instagram folks, if you do have any questions related to amputation, that is what I am here for. All right, let's see what we got. We got, hey, there's my boy, Eric. I got to spend an entire weekend hanging out with Eric over in Tennessee at the Prosthetic Orthotic and Associates clinic there, owned by the one, the only Ronnie Dixon. And he has been no stranger to the show. Y'all should, if y'all have even watched even one or two shows, you know who Ronnie Dixon is, an amazing prosthetist. And he, not only is he an amazing clinician, just an amazing human being. He brought me out to his clinic out in Chattanooga so that I could do a continuing education course for the physical therapists and his community. And, one of the reasons I really have enjoyed working with Ronnie so much in these past years is, again, not just a phenomenal clinician, but his desire to give back to the community and to help improve things in the community. So he had nothing to gain by bringing me out there and helping educate the physical therapists out there. His clinic is bustling with business and he has more patients than he knows what to do with. But he wants to continue to improve the education out there and helping clinicians. So we did a 3-hour CEU course. I really enjoyed my time there. It was really nice. I don't often get a chance to speak to fellow PTs. And usually I do a lot of presentations to amputee community. So it was nice to kind of be in a room full of physical therapists and be able to just start sharing some of this knowledge and experience as well. Erica said, first week of work is almost down. I'm making custom liners, man. And Eric got to be my patient model this past weekend, poor chap. But he was absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Kim says, menopause and weight has been my battle. So Kim, hopefully we can give you some insights tonight. We've got Pastor David on the show. What's up, Pastor David? And we've got Emily coming in from Central PA, where she's got her berry pomegranate tea tonight. She always has the most exotic drinks. I love it. And we have Sean coming in from Jacksonville, Florida. We got Linda here from our New Yorker right there. Let's see. Glenn says, just finished doing my bridges. Good. Now, for those of you, I'm going to do my shameless plug-in up front. For those of you who have not taken a look at my program, it's the Strong Body Program for above the knee and below the knee amputees. We've got some over 150 exercises. And actually, I have a QR code. Look at me. Aren't I fancy? All right. There we go. All right, guys, up there, I put the QR code to my Cosi Talk Strong Body Exercise Program. So it is, like I said, 150 exercise videos for above the knee and below the knee amputees. There are 2 books, and the bridging exercises that Glenn is referring to are some of my favorite exercises for strengthening the glute muscles, the gluteus muscles, gluteus maximus, also known as your tuchus, the part where you sit on, okay? And why is it that I stress the importance about the gluteal muscles? And oftentimes on the show, you'll hear me say it's all about the butt, okay? Because with any amputation, regardless of what level of amputation you have, the muscles above that amputation have to pick up more of the slack and provide more power when you are walking. And the biggest ones of these are the gluteal muscles. They are the ones that need to be nice and strong and powerful so they can stabilize your hips and your pelvis while you are walking, as well as power you through. So like I said, the bridging exercise, one of my all-time favorites. It's something that I give pretty much every single patient who comes into my office. And I can modify the exercise for someone who is literally a couple of days out of the surgery through folks who are looking for a really big challenge and who are athletes. So one of my favorite exercises right there. So Glenn, I'm very happy to hear that you are doing it, and your book is on its way, by the way. So keep an eye out for that. Let's see what else we got. We got Scott coming on board, West Virginia and Coldwater. Scott, good to see you, man. Eric is like, no bridges, because he got to demonstrate a lot of bridges during that education course that I did last weekend. Hey there, Denise. There's my Tar Heel from North Carolina. She's got her protein smoothie tonight. And we got Dave Fink on board. Oh, Dave, good to see you, man. All right, guys, let's get this party started. I'll be kind of jumping back and forth between my Instagram channel. We got Molale Shell. It's all these interesting Instagram handles, and the Bionic Futures on board, and I Am Amputee World. So guys, thanks for joining in. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome. My name is Cosi and I. I'm a physical therapist here in Tampa, Florida. I've been a PT now for a little over 23 years, and my passion is working with the amputee and limb loss community. So this show is for the amputee community. That includes amputees, their clinicians, their caregivers, and family members, and helping you answer pretty much any question under the sun. I've been doing this now for almost 6 years, guys, almost 6 years broadcasting this show. And I think I've been asked pretty much every question under the sun. Don't always know the answer, but I know where I can get it for you. Hey there, Jerry Ann, coming in from Arizona, drinking her cinnamon sweet roll coffee. Ooh, that sounds good. All right, guys, let's start with some of these questions. So I kind of put a little teaser up in the title of tonight about weight loss and weight management after amputation. And the question had come in from a viewer who says, she says, I am a bilateral below the knee amputee and trying to lose weight by tracking calories. My daily caloric intake will be based upon my height. 3 years ago, I was 5 feet 7 inches, but now technically I'm 4 feet 9 inches. What height do you think I should be using? Thanks. Okay. And again, guys, oh, Emily, I appreciate that. Thank you for telling your PM&R doctor about the show. I appreciate that. So guys, when it comes to weight loss and management, as a licensed physical therapist, I can give very general recommendations and general references. So I do have to put that out there. Over the years, yes, I've had to work with a lot of my patients when it comes to weight management, because a large percentage of amputees gain weight after amputation. So even though they lose a limb, because of the fact that they're oftentimes sedentary, after amputation, they start to gain weight. Okay. In some cases, folks will gain weight because they're having to wait a longer time to get their prosthetic leg. So they're not anywhere near as active, or they have medical complications, whatever complications that led to losing their limb are still present in their body. Okay. So it could be actual medical complications that are preventing activity from happening. There's also things, from medical situations where they might be retaining a lot of water and just having a lot of globalized edema, right? When it comes to weight loss, there are, and I did a whole show on this, guys, by the way. So tonight I'm going to be touching upon things, but if you want a really in-depth, deep dive into all the different strategies for weight loss and weight management, please go to the YouTube channel. I'm going to put it up here right now. I did what I think was a really great show back in November. And if one of you guys can right click and put that link into the comment section, that'd be awesome. It's a show I did in November with Reggie Showers at the Lululemon store. Okay. So if you go to my YouTube channel under the live video archives, you'll find it there. So if anybody happens to be able to kind of share that link right now, that would be awesome. I just put the link to my general YouTube channel. And I break down just all the different methods of weight loss that there are out there. One of the things what I feel like the medical community has really been learning more about in the past decade, I think we've seen an explosion, is regarding women's health when it comes to weight loss, and especially women who are in their early childbearing years in their 20s all the way through menopause and the years past that, and just how much our hormones and how those hormones are changing throughout the decades really play a huge role in this. Also, the importance of gut health, the importance of our immune system, and how a lot of this is all tied together. And it's not to say that men also don't have to watch out about this, but with women, we do have a much uh, bigger variables there with the hormones. So it's very common that with my women who come in, that they were possibly experiencing issues with their weight prior to amputation because they were, approaching perimenopause or menopause, starting in their mid 30s, by the way. It's getting kind of younger. We're starting to realize these effects are starting. And then just realizing that with the added amputation and less mobility, that they're really starting to feel these effects. So there's a lot of recommendations that I have for you on that YouTube channel video. For sure, I definitely, and I've always done this my entire career, I've always encouraged consulting with a dietitian. Okay. And here's the difference. This is something I found out recently myself. Registered dietitians are, in fact, that they are registered licensed clinicians. Nutritionists, on the other hand, basically anybody can kind of hang a shingle and call themselves a nutritionist. There's no real licensure there. It's kind of a little on the gray area. So in general, I usually like to recommend folks go to a registered dietitian. These are the folks who went to college and received a formalized education. That being said, there is a slightly newer branch of care, medical care, that we're seeing with functional medicine practitioners. This is something that has recently become more of a thing. And again, I highly recommend people to do their research, make sure they have somebody who's been adequately trained and has the right licensure for this. But I do like what I'm seeing out of the functional medicine practitioner realm, in the sense that I feel like they're taking a much more holistic approach to health and nutrition and preventing a lot of things. But again, the struggle with weight loss after amputation is a very real thing for both men and women. I think for men, I think it's a little bit more straightforward. For a lot of my male patients, a lot of it involves tracking these calories. And by the way, yes, when you track calories, if you're doing a strict caloric intake, outtake type thing, then you are going to base it on your current weight. And current height, even though the height really doesn't play, I think, as much of a role into it in terms of calories. I think the focus needs to be more on the quality of calories you're taking in, making sure you're taking in enough protein, good fats, good carbs, the carbs that are going to provide you quality nutrition there. So there's a lot of things that are involved in this. So again, if you are struggling with managing your weight and you're struggling with the weight loss, then I think it's definitely worth an investment in your time and perhaps even money to seek the services of a dietitian. And again, you can find functional medicine practitioners that are dietitians and things like that. So if you want the more holistic approach and how can you do this naturally, then I think that is an avenue to explore. All right, Audrey says, you're looking for horse enthusiasts. That would be me. I rode horses all my life from age 8 to 55. What advice can I give, Audrey? Thank you so much for being on board. That was kind of like the second teaser in my video for this evening, was the weight loss management, and also we got a lot of folks on Instagram. Wow. Hey guys. And also just the horse enthusiast. So I don't know what's in the water, but in the past, this past summer, I think I've had about 3 or 4 different people from different parts of the US ask me about horseback riding and being an amputee. One of them came from a clinician. It's this lovely husband and wife duo. The wife is a physical therapist. The husband's a prosthetist. And she reached out to me. She's in Florida. And she said, how can I help my patient get back on the horse? Literally. So guys, I know the absolute basics of how to get on a horse and how to make the horse go. And if I'm really lucky, I know how to make the horse stop. But other than that, I think from what I've been able to piece together. And Audrey, I would love if you can just start typing furiously away in the comment section and tell us what you've learned from being an amputee and continuing horseback riding. I think the main thing to determine is, are you going to get on the horse with or without your prosthesis? So, a part of it, Audrey says you should never wear your prosthetic. It's too dangerous. So I guess my question would be is, if you're a below the knee amputee, if it would be possible to get on the horse with your prosthesis or not. First of all, guys, if this is something that you are attempting to do, go to a reputed horse stable. That advice I can give you for sure. I know in my area, I live in the more rural area of Tampa, so we have a lot of horse stables in the area, and you can ask most of the locals, and we know which are the horses that are really well trained, very calm horses versus ones that are a little on the barn spoiled side and that you want to avoid. So first of all, if you are going to try the horseback riding, obviously the biggest piece of advice is make sure you are doing it with a horse that is well trained and that you have someone there to help you who is also very well trained with horses, that can help you kind of just troubleshoot how to get on and off the horse. First of all, if you're a below the knee amputee, I can kind of sort of see you being able to get on the horse using your sound leg to post up onto the horse. And then once you are on the horse, whether you decide to use your prosthetic foot in the stirrup or not. Again, I think that's something that can be kind of troubleshooted with a very safe, slow horse that's very patient. Let's see. Emily says therapeutic riding stables are great if you can find one. Agreed. Hey, Diana, good to see you. Linda says that she rides with her prosthesis. I can see where if you are an above the knee amputee, that riding with your prosthesis can be a lot more tricky because you're having to maneuver the knee and the ankle. So I think that would be a little bit more tricky. The hindsight to that is, if you do not have your prosthetic leg on, then you're going to have to really strengthen your thigh muscles, specifically the adductor muscles, the muscles that kind of hold you on that horse, and do a lot of core strengthening so you don't develop asymmetries or any kind of weird sitting patterns. Audrey says, yes, if you've never ridden, you definitely want to do it at a trained facility below or above. If you use the stirrup, you can get stuck, and it's all about balance. Very good. So, bottom line that we can all agree on is go to a qualified horse stable that will have qualified horseback riders, who can really help assist you with this. And then troubleshooting. And I say this the same thing even when it comes to something completely different, like going to the beach or going to the pool for the first time. There are general guidelines that I can give you, but ultimately you need to get out there and with someone who can help you in a safe way and troubleshoot what is the best way that works for you. Again, from a physical therapy standpoint, those of you who are avid with your equestrian, hobby, certainly strengthening trunk muscles, strengthening your adductor muscles, right, is something that I would recommend to anybody who is on a horse, but especially if you do have the asymmetry of having an amputation. And then working with your prosthetist. I've seen some prosthetists come up with some very imaginative ways to help people get back to their hobbies, whether it's sports, whether it's, any other adaptive hobby. And one thing that I can kind of think of is people who go back to riding a bicycle. How they accommodate their prosthetic foot to be able to be in the pedal. So it makes me wonder, if some of those adaptations can also be applied to when you're riding a horse, right? And having to put your foot in the stirrup. Again, something that I think that warrants a conversation with the prosthetist and just to see what can be done. Dave says, I keep telling my wife, Kim, I have good fat. I need to lose a few. AK, slow to exercise. What advice, Cosi, do above waist gym work 3 times a week? And again, so I mentioned earlier the differences between men and women when it comes to weight loss. And the big thing is the hormones, right? Women, we've got hormones that are just constantly changing every day. We are a little bit different. Men, not so much. Their hormone levels are one way in the morning, and then they go to bed at night and their hormones are just a little bit different. And then they start all over again. So men, a little bit more stable with the hormones. So when it comes to weight management, a lot of times with my men, it's about, yes, having some sort of caloric control there. Calories in have to be less than calories out. And it's also about the quality of the food, okay? Especially for my amputees who are trying to heal their wounds. If they have any problems with wound healing, having good protein intake. You also need energy. I know carbs have become the villain nowadays in nutrition, but good quality carbs provide us with good quality energy. And I think the rule of thumb that can be applied to everybody who is a human on this planet is eating as whole food as possible. So whenever people say, what should I be eating? I go, well, I think of one ingredient foods and filling your plate with one ingredient foods. So what are examples of one ingredient foods? Vegetables, fruit, protein sources, such as like animal protein. I prefer animal protein sources. So chicken, eggs, beef, fish, things that are just one ingredient. And then just making combinations of a lot of that. Let's see. Susan says, I lost 40 pounds in 6 months. Well, what was your secret, Susan? Linda says, I have breakaway stirrups. And yes, my clef is programmed for the angle of my foot. There you go. Thank you, ladies. I really appreciate having your horse input because, like I said, I've had like 3 or 4 people in the past few months ask me these questions. Susan says, I don't eat meat. And again, there's different ways of getting protein in, but yes, protein is something that needs to definitely be included in your diet. It's got essential amino acids and we need that. We need that. Robert says, I'm an 18-month amputee. My stump is not shrinking. Is that normal? That's very interesting. It's unusual. It's unusual, Robert. And again, I guess my deeper dive question would be, what is your activity level right now? So guys, typically in the first year to 2 years after surgical amputation, you're going to have a limb volume fluctuation, a lot. Obviously the first, I would say 6 to 9 months are the most dramatic. And a lot of that is due to the inflammation caused by surgery. So as the person starts to heal from the surgery and these soft tissues all start to kind of remodel and get to their new shape, and the fluid gets moved out of the limb starts to shrink down in size. And then as the person starts to use a prosthesis, then a lot of that circulation gets pumped out. So a lot of that swelling will get pumped out. As the person starts to kind of get more independent with their mobility and just a little bit more consistent with their routine using a prosthesis, a lot of times that limb volume can be a little bit more stable. Okay. So what do I mean by stable? Meaning that it's in a predictable pattern. For some people, it means that their limb doesn't change volume shape, and that's not very common, but there are some people that are like that, right? They watch their diet very carefully. They have a very healthy lifestyle. And then there's some people that they have fluctuations throughout the day, but that they can predict these fluctuations. So in the morning, they might be a little bit more swollen, but they know by the afternoon, they're going to have shrunk down just a little bit more. Okay. Hey, Alex. Good. Haven't seen you in a while, man. Good to see you. So yes, Robert, in your case, and again, I'd like to know a little bit more if you don't mind sharing, are you walking a lot during the day? Are you wearing a prosthesis regularly? Do you primarily use a wheelchair to get around in your community? So those questions might help me answer that a little bit better. Let's see. Audrey says, above the knee amputees can use a sling to help hold the stump. Oh, I like that. She says, I ride a lot without stirrups and core and thigh muscles are key. See, I got that part right. It's all about basic balance, like riding a bike, but you are on a 1,000-pound animal that can be unpredictable. The therapeutic riding stables can get most anybody on a horse, and they also have wheelchair ramps and such to get you safely on the horse. 2 people are beside you at all times and another person is leading you. Research the stable before you go to make sure they are certified. Again, safety is key. Audrey, thank you so much for all of this. This is wonderful. So spot on with everything that she just said. There are adaptive horse stables. Unfortunately, I don't know of any in my area. And that's probably something I should kind of look into a little bit more, because now that I'm just kind of digging back in the memories of when I was a student, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I was a student in physical therapy, equine therapy was becoming popular. And we were realizing the benefits of using horses for therapy and for strengthening, specifically for kids, kids with cerebral palsy, specifically, and spina bifida. That we were realizing that the muscles that then strengthening that they were doing to stay on a horse was helping them in their daily mobility as well. But yes, I am a beginner horse rider, very, very beginner. I enjoy it, but I certainly respect because, yes, it is a very, very large animal. They can be unpredictable. And I know that when I take my kids horseback riding, I do my research very carefully to make sure we're going to safe stables. But thank you, Audrey. I really appreciate all of that input. Thank you. Let's see. Susan says, my secret, been very ill. They can't figure out why, and I can't eat much or I vomit. Oh, Susan, I am sorry to hear that. I hope they find out what's going on. Robert says, I'm not a big guy and very active, and I'm still in my first prosthetic. So Robert, it could be that, especially if you don't have any other medical issues, for example, if you don't have diabetes, if you don't have high blood pressure or autoimmune disease or anything like that going on, that you have a stable weight. And if you are very active, then chances are maybe that also means that you've probably pretty much healed from the surgical inflammation. So if your limb is staying stable and not shrinking, then I would say take that as a blessing. There will be a lot of people on here who will be a little bit jealous of you for that. But again, as long as you are walking, your prosthesis is fitting well, you're not having any issues with it, no pain, no discomfort, then ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, and consider yourself one of the lucky ones that your limb is staying kind of stable. Through the years, you might notice slight decreasing in the size just because over the years, those muscles will start to atrophy. Another thing that just kind of popped in my brain. Wait, let me just check Instagram. Okay, we're good. Another thing that would be interesting, and this is just me being a Monday morning quarterback, is what kind of an amputation did you have? So when a surgeon amputates, there's a couple of different ways that they can attach the muscles. Sometimes they will attach the residual muscles and they'll tack it back onto the bone, and that's called a myodesis. In other cases, they might attach the residual one muscle to another muscle and create like a little muscle sling, and that's called a myoplasty. And certainly with certain surgical strategies, they are a little bit better than others. So for example, and sometimes with the myodesis, it means that the person can contract the residual muscle a little bit better. So that might also explain why maybe your limb isn't shrinking very much. Again, just throwing an educated guess. Audrey says, myself and my horse at the time worked at a certified place and we helped a lot. That is absolutely wonderful. Audrey, do you mind my asking whereabouts are you? Are you in what state? If you don't mind, if you don't want to share that, that's fine. I completely understand. But if you have any references for adaptive horse riding stables and you wouldn't mind putting that in the comment section, I know folks here would probably want to hear about it. Sean says, that's me, but not so much with this new electronic vacuum system. Really? Okay, Sean, I have questions. So clarify this for me, Sean. Are you more stable with your limb volume with the vacuum or without the vacuum? I'm not sure if I'm understanding. Let's see. Emily says, my last two horses weren't always predictable, and one was 17 hands tall. He was a big baby. Yeah, that's a big horse. And to be unpredictable, whoo. Okay, so Sean says, FYI, since I am trying to get used to my electronic vacuum system, I don't sweat as much. I have a Willowwood Limb Logic system and no sweat. Ooh, and you're in Florida, so that's kind of a big deal. Robert says, thank you. I was worried I have no other medical issues. No. So, okay, so Robert says, blood clot calf wrap type is what my surgeon said. Okay, I'm not sure what he means by calf wrap type. What that might mean is that they flapped forward and your scar is on the front part of your leg. So again, Robert, yeah, all of the things being equal, you're just going about your day and your limb is just kind of staying stable. Call it a victory. Okay. Audrey says there are both physical and mental advantages if you find a therapeutic riding stable. I completely agree. It's a great way to overcome fears and help you realize that you can do more than what you think. And I couldn't agree with you more, Audrey. You are a gem. Thank you so much. And she's in Maine. Okay, wonderful. Let's Let's see. We got Kathy. Haven't seen you in a while, darling. Glad to see you. So Sean says with the vacuum. So guys, when you have elevated vacuum, and let's talk, we haven't talked about elevated vacuum in a little while. So with elevated vacuum, it's and we always have this discussion. It is a form of suspension. So basically how the prosthetic leg is held on to you. And there's many different kinds of suspension systems. Elevated vacuum, in my opinion, should be considered a secondary form of suspension, meaning it should not be the primary way your leg is being held on. Your leg can be held on primarily in other ways. And then the elevated vacuum just kind of gives that nice secondary suspension, right? So one of the benefits of elevated vacuum is that it can help with limb volume fluctuation, meaning it keeps your limb volume more stable throughout the day. Basically, because it's just providing a nice negative pressure. So it's just kind of providing nice, even negative pressure throughout the limb, which kind of keeps everything nice and stable throughout the day, right? Stabilizes that circulatory kind of rhythm there. And Emily says, and I'm only 4'10". Holy cow, girl, on a 17-hand horse. That's a big boy. Let's see. Audrey says, I have a pony, miniature horse, and a baby alpaca at her small farm here in Maine. Oh, that sounds so sweet. Okay, let me get to this other question because there were a couple people here. Oh, here was that question. So Suzanne is the name of the physical therapist who asked about the horse riding technique. So hopefully she's listening in this evening. All right, let's see. The next question came in from Randy. He said, I had my above the knee amputation in late September of last year. I received my initial prosthetic, very basic mechanical leg in mid-January. I'm very active and walking beyond my current prosthetic capabilities. Next week, I'll be meeting with my clinician to work on getting an upgraded leg. Woohoo! I would appreciate any insight you can give me for the components. The more research I do, the more confusing it becomes. There is a lot out there. Oh my gosh, tell me about it. So guys, when I first came on this evening, I probably looked like my eyes were like frazzled. So I have been, let's see, I've done 4 amputee related trips, conferences since May, and I have 2 more left to go for this year. So for me, that's a lot. And I am so thrilled. I was invited to go speak at the University of Krakow in Poland in October. I was a virtual speaker at their symposium last year. So I was in Tampa speaking virtually to Poland, which was super cool, super cool. And then they invited me to come and speak in person in Poland, which I love Krakow. I was able to visit there once, and it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful city. And I am so excited to get to go there again. And I will be doing a 6-hour continuing education course, which is a lot of work. So my mind right now is just exploding with all the latest research and facts. But anyways, when it comes to the componentry, yes, there is a lot to consider, guys. I've done several shows on what you need to know about prosthetic componentry. And in this part, I am going to do a shameless plug because I'm quite proud of. If you go to my website, cositalks.com, you'll see a section that has my new blog. It's something I started this year, and my podcast. And I did specific shows on everything you need to know about prosthetic feet, and then how to choose a prosthetic foot. Like I said, I'm really proud of that because I feel like I've broken it down into bite-sized pieces that's easy for, I know, me to understand, and hopefully for those of you listening to understand. When I think of prosthetic componentry, I don't think of it in terms of all these really hot to trot names that the companies put on their components. I mean, they're really fun names like the Power Knee and like the Rio and like the Genium X3 and all these really cool things, but they don't really tell us much what it does. Okay. And that's what we need to know. We need to know, what is it that this foot does? How is it that this knee works? Because that's what's going to tell us what's going to be the best choice for us. Are you somebody who needs more stability in your knee and in your foot? Or are you somebody that needs less stability and more mobility? Okay. And what are the features that you need to look for in the prosthetic feet and knee when you're making these decisions? Now, I don't have one yet on prosthetic knees, and that's going to be coming out pretty soon, but I have done, guys, If you look back on my YouTube archive, I've done several shows on prosthetic knees. So you can kind of go through the archives and I can actually think of the ones I did with College Park when their capital knee came out, and I talked about prosthetic knees. But in the meantime, if you want a nice, easy reference, go to my blog and you can read the blog that I wrote on prosthetic feet. And then I have these little downloadables that I call cheat sheets. It's a reference sheet that you can take with you to your prosthetist. So when you need just that quick reference of, okay, what was the kind of prosthetic foot classification that I was reading about? You have it right there in front of you. So please, I encourage you, go and check that out. Again, when it comes to the prosthetic componentry, you need to think about what it is that you want to do in your life. What are the goals? What are the mobility requirements that you have for your personal life, for your hobbies, for your professional life? Okay. And these are things that you need to talk to your prosthetist and your physical therapist about, because this can help guide them in helping you make a decision. Okay. Dave says, with an AK osseointegration, I'm slow to trust my parts and connection advice. Glenn is my North Star and I need to push forward. So when it comes to osseointegration, oh my gosh, talk about a soapbox for me, right? I've had a chance to really get to learn a lot about osseointegration this past year with my partnership with Integrum and getting to know specifically about the Oprah system. So when it comes to osseointegration, right, the coolest thing is you don't have to deal with a socket, right? Your prosthesis attaches directly to the metal implant that's coming out of your leg. Okay. And if you guys are like, what in the world is she talking about? Guys, go to the YouTube channel. Tons of shows that I've done on osseointegration. Okay. So with osseointegration, yay, you don't have to deal with a socket anymore. But it also means that you don't have a socket that is providing stability to your femur, right? So where to go? Cosi's goodie box. Okay. So when you have an above the knee socket, right? The basic tenets of the above the knee socket is it's trying to stabilize the femur. And in most cases, here, if this is like the groin area, so this is a right above the knee prosthesis. So this is the area that's, right in the groin, right? The stability provided here and then here, right? It helps stabilize that femur so it doesn't go swishing in and out like this, right? And that's why these trim lines tend to be high. So when you take away the socket, there's nothing holding that femur, right? Besides the leg attached to it. It means that your muscles have to provide that stability. Okay. So the good news is no socket. The bad news, which to me is not bad news, you have to strengthen those glutes. You really need to strengthen the glutes and the residual hamstrings and the residual quads and the hip flexors, right? All the muscles in your thigh and in your butt, right? To make things as strong as possible to stabilize yourself. Okay, so that is kind of like, that's the key right there, Dave. So when all of that is nice and strong, then you're going to have that trust in your prosthesis. Okay, the other cool thing about the osseointegration is you're getting some lovely proprioceptive input. What do I mean by that? When you use a traditional socket, right, a lot of people think that your bone is carrying your body weight. It is not. It is not. It should not. Right? It's all the soft tissues, your muscles and the soft tissue. That's how it's being, the weight is being distributed through the socket. With osseointegration, because you have that metal implant going directly into your bone, the weight of your body is also now being taken up by the bone again, the way it was intended to, right? So you're getting all of that input. And in the beginning, especially those of you who've had osseointegration, you can probably back me up on this. The first times that you are taking those steps and putting weight into that osseointegration and into that metal implant, it's very shocking because you're getting that input right into the middle of that bone, right? It takes a little getting used to. Okay. But after the recovery process, again, strengthening up those muscles, you're going to feel that prosthesis better. You're going to feel where it is a lot better. But yeah, it's a two-part. You have to strengthen those muscles, right? And that's what's ultimately going to help you give you that trust in your prosthesis. And then also, Dave, the other part of it is learning the knee that you have. And this is something that I see a lot in my above the knee patients when they come in to see me for the first time and they never had a physical therapy session, or they perhaps had a physical therapist who didn't have amputee experience and was not familiar with the knees. So a lot of times my patients might come in and they have these really amazing, gorgeous, hoopy scoopy knees, but they don't know how to use them. So I always give the analogy of, giving a 16-year-old a Ferrari without teaching them how to drive, manual transmission, right? And they're driving it in first gear and burning the clutch and all that kind of crazy stuff, right? So for those of you who have these wonderful knees, you need to understand how they are used and how to activate them with physical therapy. Sean says, Slim Girl on Instagram has an AKOI. Yes, Slim Jeannie is her name. And Jeannie is an absolute wonderful, oh my gosh, finally got to meet her in Atlanta at the AC Coalition Conference. Just wonderful human being. And I love her sense of humor. She does have a wonderful Instagram channel, and she really shows life with osseointegration and all the bumps and stumbles and the good things that come with being an amputee with OI. Jerry Ann says, do you have to sign up every year to get the video exercises, or is it a one-time fee? At the moment, Jerry Ann, it is an annual fee, and it's, I believe it's $60 to sign up for the year membership. So it comes out to $5 a month. And you have access to all the videos. And then the book, if you want to purchase the book, it's a $60 fee as well. So let's see. Glenn says, it's certainly shocking at first with regards to the OI, but now it's as close to my regular leg I've felt since my amputation. Yeah. Oh, my pleasure, Robert. That's what I am here for. Okay, let me make sure. Whoops. Not click myself out of the screen. Oh, okay. Okay, Scott was asking, what are my thoughts on Martin Bionics versus RevoFit socket? So if those names sound kind of like, what are those names? Scott is asking about adjustable socket technology. And this is something that we've seen a big boom in the past 5 to 10 years of amputee care. So let's talk a little bit briefly on adjustable socket technology. It's exactly what the name indicates, the socket being adjustable. So as we mentioned earlier, in those first 2 years after amputation, you're going to have a lot of limb volume fluctuation, limb going up, limb going down, shrinking up and down and up and down. And it is an incredibly frustrating process for a lot of my patients and viewers because they have to learn how to manage socks, right? Unless you have osseointegration. So in managing those socks, taking socks on, taking socks off, knowing how many to put on and what it feels like, and if your skin starts to get red or if it starts, very frustrating. Not to mention that it takes time to put a prosthesis completely on. And then if you realize you've done it incorrectly, you got to take everything off, put it back on again. Okay, so with adjustable socket technology, we have some companies out there in the field that have figured out how to put adjustability into the socket. And I've seen quite a few different iterations of this. The two biggest players that I've seen and that I've learned about on the market are Martin Bionics and the RevoFit socket by Click Medical. Now, I have worked with a couple of patients with Martin Bionics, but guys, I will be very honest, I am not as familiar with their product, okay? And again, this is something that I would encourage you to go out and learn more when it comes to the Martin Bionics socket. I do have a partnership with Click Medical, and the reason I have a partnership with them is because I really like their product. Not the other way around. Some people might say, well, you're talking about the product because they sponsor you. No, I actually started talking about their product long before they sponsored me because I really liked their product and their solution to the adjustable socket. But that being said, I'm always saying there's more than one solution for a problem. And I have had patients who did the Martin Bionics socket and they're very happy with it. I do recommend that when it comes to the Martin Bionics socket, you need to find a prosthetist who's been trained by Martin Bionics, okay? Because it is a very different socket construction. So if you are getting a Martin Bionics socket, you need to ask the prosthetist, what training did you receive for this? And there are other sockets. I've seen other prosthetists who have kind of created their own version of the adjustable socket. And I've seen some quite successful iterations of this. I know that actually this past weekend when I was at Ronnie Dixon's clinic, he has his own version of creating adjustability in his patient sockets, and it works great. So again, it's about asking the prosthetist, if they use adjustable socket technology, what kind do they use and how did they go about learning about it, right? I can tell you, like I said, with Click Medical, they have an entire education system on their website that the prosthetist accesses and has access to, and they get all of the training, and then they have the support from the actual Click Medical team. Fantastic team, and they give great support. And like I said, with Martin Bionics, they also provide their own training for you, the creation of their kind of socket. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the RevoFit. So Click Medical makes the RevoFit, which is what you see here. Sorry, I'm reaching into, I have like a whole basket of like all my prosthetic goodies here. So it's like off screen, but it's all my prosthetic goodies that I've collected over the years. So when it comes to the RevoFit socket, your prosthetist will order a kit, and it'll come in a box that looks pretty much like this. I think it's a different color. I don't think it's blue. I think it's a different color. And it'll have all the components that your prosthetist needs to create a RevoFit socket. And here are some of this is like my model socket. So it has a lot of stuff going on. They sent this for me. So they can put a gap into your socket, a gap design. They can put, let me make sure I got the right dial for this one. The different panels, right? So you can see I'm really opening it up so you guys can see. They can put panels into your socket to get it to adjust. And then they can also put a hinge design, which I don't have that one into this particular demo socket, but it just does that. It hinges open like this, which I kind of like for the people who have very bulbous end on their residual limb, because it helps kind of slip it in a little bit easier. But the concept is your prosthetist builds the adjustability in. And then with the kit, they're putting in the cording right here that helps tighten everything up. And then also the dial. Some of you might have a BOA dial, and then their newer version is the click reel. And what I really like about the click reel, and I have it in there somewhere, you can adjust it to tighten, and then you can turn it the other way to loosen it. And you can do these little, what they call micro adjustments. And I really like that. So you can adjust the socket up to 10 ply socks. Okay, so just some simple math. If you're somebody that by the end of your day, you're wearing 15 ply socks, you can bring that down to 5 ply and tighten this to do the rest of the adjustment. Okay, so it's kind of cool. The cool thing is that I also like about the RevoFit is your prosthetist is still the one creating the socket. So a lot of times you guys will tell me, well, I really love my socket. It fits nicely. It's just a pain in the butt to have to take it on and off several times a day to add socks to it. Okay, so again, you still have your prosthetist creating the socket, and they're just having the ability to the adjustability. And you can do this through your pant leg, so you don't have to like pretty much disrobe to change everything. You can do this through the pant leg, and it's really great. So really, really like this design. But again, guys, as always, go ask questions. If Martin Bionics is something that you guys are looking at, then go to a prosthetist who's been trained properly with Martin Bionics. And I think also if you go on the Click Medical website, let me just put it up here real quick. I believe it's clickmedical.co, not C-O-M. So if you go to the Click Medical website, I believe that you can look up by state who provides the Click Medical socket. Let's see, we got some questions rolling in. Yes, Glenn, I did see when you and Jeannie switched legs, and I think it took me a minute. Like I saw the picture, you two had swapped legs, and it was just like something ain't right here. This looks, it was really funny. Sean says Click Medical has better options and your prosthetist is sent with Click Medical equipment. Dave says, I loved my Martin Bionics socket prior to getting osseointegration. I actually called Jay, the owner, and he was awesome. And Martin Bionics is open and cooler, no sock change. Okay. And there was one like years ago, it was called Limb Innovations. Unfortunately, I haven't really heard much about that company anymore. And they had a really interesting adjustable socket that several of my patients really enjoyed. It was a little bit, a little bit of a heavier socket. And it was a little on the pricey side, but I had several patients that once they had it, they really, really liked it. So again, guys, like no one solution works for everybody. And I encourage you, go find what works best for you and ask the questions. Tatiana is asking, is adjustable socket recommended for the first socket? I think it's a great option. Do I think everybody should have an adjustable socket? No. Do I think everybody should ask their prosthetist about it? Yeah. When it comes to those first sockets that you have, like I said, one of the biggest frustrations is the amount of shrinkage that your limb will have. So for some people that might be very traumatic, and it might involve having to go through more than one socket. So, for me, it does kind of seem a little logical that if you have adjustability built into that socket, you can buy yourself a little bit more time. Okay. So again, I think you should have that conversation with the prosthetist and just see. There are some prosthetists that are very open to adjustable socket technology and some prosthetists that just simply don't like it. But again, just ask questions. Ask them, do you think I'm a candidate? If you don't think I'm a candidate, why? If you do think I'm a candidate, which method are you familiar with and do you like to use, right? And just ask these questions, guys. What I do like about, again, with the Click Medical is you have the kit where you can make a new socket with adjustability. They have something called the Revo Surface. So if you have an existing socket, right, you have a socket that's already been made and you want to put adjustability onto it without having to rebuild the socket, they have a kit for that as well. So I think that's kind of a cool option to have, All right. Yes. So Click Medical will send the equipment to the prosthetist. Yes. And provide the training. Let me make sure I've gotten all the questions here. Kenny's asking my thoughts on the Oser Cheetah Explorer, getting ready to build a new below the knee next week. Is that one of their running blades? And guys, like it's one of those things, like, even though I've been doing this for years and years and years, like there are hundreds of feet out there on the market. And I know a lot of them, but there's a lot of them that when I hear the name, I'm like, yes, have I heard of this foot? Yes. But to me, I'm like, what is it that the foot does? That's more of what I kind of look into. So, if it's the running blade, I know Oser has some really phenomenal running blades, and I happen to like Oser's running blade. I like Phil Hour's running blades. I think they're kind of cool. So, and again, that's just personal preference right there. When it comes to running blades, especially if you're somebody who is going to have a running leg made, which you should, if you're using a running blade, you should have a dedicated running leg made. Then I think the same concept applies for your running blades as it does for your prosthetic foot. You should try out at least two. I think you should try two, especially a lot of these blades are not covered by insurance yet. Hopefully that will change in the future. So that is a huge investment. So if you are in the market to purchasing your own blade, or if you are in the VA, for example, in the VA system, and they provide a blade for you, I think it certainly warrants trying out more than one, because not all blades are created equal. Mm-hmm. Hey, Jody! Oh, good to hear from you, Jody. Jody, can you just send me a message and let me know how you've been? I haven't heard from you all summer, so I'd love to know how you're doing. Kenny says, not a blade. It goes into a foot shell and you put it on a shoe. So it's a walking foot. Kenny, honestly, like I said, when it comes to prosthetic feet, I think of it in terms of what are the functional characteristics? Does it have dynamic response? Is it a multi-axial type foot? So Kenny, here's what I want you to do for me. There is my email address. Kenny, I want you to send me an email and say, Cosi, look up the Oser Cheetah, whatever foot you just told me about, and look it up and tell me what you think about it. Okay. And I will look it up. And once I read the specs, I can tell you more about what that foot is meant to do. And then, what questions maybe you should be asking. Kim says, the shape of the bone has changed over the years for me. Tibia tends to be rubbed sore and my knee is not aligned. So Kim, what actually you're noticing is the shape of the bone may not have been what changes. It's not the shape of the bone that changes. It's the muscle. So if you have, for example, a below the knee amputation, right? A lot of the muscle tissue will atrophy and it will fall away and it exposes the tibia bone more. So it might seem like the tibia bone itself has changed, but it's not that it's changed. It's just everything else around it has changed and kind of fallen down and perhaps sagged a little bit. And then you can see that tibia bone a little bit more prominently. And yes, definitely for sure, that can be a big problem when it comes to prosthetic fit. If that tibia bone is not padded by soft tissue, it can be a sore spot in that socket. And again, I was having that conversation with Ronnie this past week, where we were talking about just different strategies that can be used for that. One of them is, how can you fit the liner to help bring that soft tissue forward and provide a little bit of padding on that tibia. And then if your knee is not aligned, whether it's a prosthetic alignment or if that's the anatomical, is it the anatomy that's contributing to the alignment, or is it the prosthesis that's contributing to the alignment being off? Kim, definitely a conversation to have with your prosthetist. If they've set the socket in a different way and aligned it a little differently and it's affecting the tibia, that's something that needs to be addressed. Or again, going back to the atrophy of the muscles. If you're a below the knee amputee, then your quad muscles and your hamstrings are going to be intact. And if you strengthen that, that's going to give your knee better stability and hopefully not cause as many issues later on. Sherry. Oh, I got to hang out with my girl Sherry over in Tennessee last weekend, and it was such a joy getting to sit down and I got to have lunch with her after the course and talk to her and hear her story, which is honestly, guys, that's what I love to do most when I meet you all in person, is hear your story. So Sherry, thank you again for sharing your story with me this past weekend, and I hope to see you, at a future conference. All right, guys, I am talked out and I got to all my questions this evening. All right. So, Kenny, you have your homework. You have to send me that email. Okay. And I want to look that up for you. Guys, next week, what is next week? Next week is the first week of September. Whew, already there. Okay. So guys, next week, general Q&A. For those of you who are new to the show, I am going to, yes. Okay. Sorry, it took me a second to realize that. All right. So guys, if you're new to the show and you have not yet signed up for my text messaging program, please consider doing so. All you have to do is text Cosi Talks, all caps, one word, to that number that I just provided right there. And in doing so, you'll receive my text alerts. So whenever I go live. And then the cool thing is you can send me your text messages and you can send me your questions that way. I promise I don't send a lot of spam. I don't send a lot of useless junk in the text messaging. It's just a quick message with links to whenever I go live, and also a way for me to communicate back with you. So guys, that's about it for this evening. If I did miss your question, guys, please send it to my email and I will be sure to address it next week. And if you have a question for me that you want me to answer next week, there's my email address, cosi@cositalks.com. So thank you guys for letting me be a part of your lives this evening, and I will see you next week